Have you ever felt lost? Wanting to start something great, but not knowing where to begin? Don't skip this video because in just a few minutes, I'll help you understand this issue and answer the greatest question of life. Where should I start to achieve success and sustainability? Ladies and gentlemen, I want ABC, but I don't know where to begin. This is a common situation, one that I believe many of us encounter. You're drawn to a certain field, you want to dive in, you want to succeed in it, but, oh God, where do I begin? Where do I start? It's the same with careers. You want to be a business person, a programmer, or a tour guide? Something like that. And then what? Where should I start? I don't know. So I'm stuck, and my success in that field feels like it has flown away. Am I right? In fact, this doesn't just happen in careers, folks, but also in happiness, love, and many other aspects of life. You might say, I want a healthy, beautiful relationship, but where do I start? I don't know. Or maybe you're dealing with a problem, you want to solve it, and then you ask, where do I begin? Wow, it seems like I want ABC, but I don't know where to start. This is not just a simple question, but a profound question of life and philosophy, isn't it? So how can we answer this question clearly, deeply, and universally? Why do I call it universal? Because I want an answer that can be applied to careers, to love, to health, to learning, and even to friendships. Ladies and gentlemen, in today's talk, I will not only introduce an answer to where we should begin, but I'll also prove it to you. And then you'll realize how wonderful it is to know exactly where to start. So what are we waiting for? 1, 2, let's go. Hello everyone, welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge question. I want ABC, XYZ, but I don't know where to begin. To make it easier to understand, perhaps we need a hypothetical situation, a fun example. I believe that after this example, just like many of my previous episodes you've listened to, everything will become clear. Now imagine this. There's a beautiful girl and a successful, good-looking guy. They fall for each other. From the girl's perspective, the guy is wealthy, generous, and polite, right? From the guy's perspective, the girl is beautiful, lovely, gentle, and diligent. As they say, a talented man and a beautiful woman. They're drawn to each other, attracted to one another. The talented man is drawn to the beauty of the woman. The beautiful woman is attracted to the man's talent. Perfect, right? So let me ask you this. Is their perception of each other a healthy starting point for a love relationship? You might find it funny that I'm using love as an example to illustrate this, but trust me, in a moment, you'll see the common thread across all fields. Let me ask you again. Is the mutual attraction of these two people a healthy starting point for love? Certainly not, right? Let me answer that for you. And I'll prove it to you shortly. Here's something to notice. No matter how attractive someone is, no matter how talented they are, over time, their appeal diminishes, right? In the beginning, the attraction between the two is intense. But let me ask you this. Can anyone on this earth guarantee that such intensity will remain a year later? Even when I go out to cafes, I sometimes see this. Oh my, a tall, handsome guy, dressed very fashionably, walking in with an exceptionally beautiful girlfriend. These two look like the perfect match. In the cafe, do you know what they do? Each of them takes out their phone and spends an hour on it before walking out. How do I know? Because they were so attractive, such a perfect pair that they caught my attention. They sat directly in front of me, about 4 to 5 meters away. I could see them clearly and thought to myself, oh my God, they entered the cafe hand in hand, looking so perfect together. But after that, each of them was engrossed in their phone, lost in their own worlds, faces looking tense. What's going on? This girl is stunning. Just looking at her should make you happy. And this guy, you can tell he's well off just by his attire, his clothes, shoes, watch. Just looking at each other should be enough to bring happiness. Why don't they do that? Of course, I'm just hypothesizing here, but I understand the issue. No matter how strong the initial attraction is between two people, over time, it fades. Am I right? Earlier, I asked you something. Do you still remember? Can the initial attraction between these two, the talented man and beautiful woman, serve as a sustainable starting point for love? My answer is no. Think about this. In the beginning, when someone attracts you, is it because you choose to be attracted to them? Of course not. It seems like there's an irresistible pull from them. That girl is so beautiful. Her beauty captivates you, leaving you dazed, irrational, and without any self-control. You don't consciously choose this. It just happens. You can't say, okay, I want to fall in love with her. I want to be attracted to her. That's not how it works. Attraction happens almost entirely from the other person's side. So that intense initial passion, that electrifying love, that fiery connection, where does it come from? From them. And I believe that any actions or emotions driven mostly by external forces are not sustainable. That shouldn't be the starting point for anything healthy. It's not the most important first step. Why? Because when their attractiveness wears off over time, when they become ordinary to you, you'll no longer feel drawn to them. It will fade, right? And then what? You might say, I don't feel like I love them anymore. I don't feel the same passion or intensity for them. Actually, this thought is quite foolish. Here's an easy explanation. In the beginning, when everything was new, your actions and emotions were not your own, but were led by their attractiveness. One day when their charm diminishes, because it becomes familiar, you naturally lose that spark. So that initial intense passion of yours didn't come from you, but was caused by someone else. Anything we do or think, driven by others, won't last. It's bound to fade, and that shouldn't be the starting point. So where is the starting point? The healthiest and most wonderful starting point is when you want to do something because you feel it comes from within you. That fiery initial love driven by the other person's charm won't last. But if it comes from within you, that's what truly matters. People often say, when two people become bored with each other, that's when true love begins. I completely agree with this statement. Why? Because one day you'll realize that the initial excitement is gone. The phase where their allure controlled your emotions is over because they've become familiar. At that point, you sit down with yourself and reflect. Suddenly you feel that your emotions for this person have returned to a lower state, and the things that used to attract you aren't as powerful anymore. Yet you still want to build, still want to try to maintain your love for this person. You want to make an effort. You feel like you must do something. At this moment, when you choose to stay committed because you genuinely want to, that's where true love begins. And you'll notice how challenging it is. It requires effort, willpower, and inner strength to sustain. It demands responsibility and many other qualities, all of which come entirely from your choice. Back when you first met them, they were so beautiful, so captivating, so new. You could do anything for them, but at that time your actions weren't truly yours. They were guided by their attractiveness. One day you'll find that you no longer want to act in the same way. Why? Because their charm has diminished. Yet today you still choose to sit here and say, no, now I will use my consciousness, my focus, my determination to continue expressing my love for them. I believe that a love driven by intentional effort, commitment, and willpower is a beautiful love. You'll see this clearly. For example, your partner comes home at night and shares their day with you. In the early stages, you listen intently, spending hours engaged, asking questions, showing great enthusiasm. But don't think you're noble or extraordinary during that time. Not at all. It's just that the initial allure of love is too strong. Your readiness to listen is driven by that attraction. It doesn't say much about you during that phase, but now it's different. For example, in the evening, your partner wants to share something with you, but you're very tired and just want to rest. Yet you know they're upset, so you make an effort to sit down, share with them, and listen to them. What is that effort? That's love. All actions that require deliberate effort beneath the surface are the starting points of a wonderful love. Because nearly 100% of the motivation behind that action is, I want to, not I'm being led. And that's sincerity. You can call it whatever you like. Almost all the adjectives, verbs, and nouns associated with the beauty of love stem from this place, right? That's love. That's why sometimes I see people who don't realize this. They go from one relationship to another. In reality, I call that biological love. What does that mean? When you meet someone who attracts you, your brain releases hormones and neurotransmitters that make you feel euphoric, infatuated. It's the other person who triggers this response in you. They are the stimulus. One day when these neurotransmitters stop flowing abundantly, you lose interest. Then you look for a new person, someone who can again trigger these chemicals. After a while, you lose interest again, and the cycle continues. Such people might pride themselves on having a rich love life, boasting of dating 5, 10, even 50 people. But I'm not sure if they truly understand what love is. Because if the starting point of love is driven by someone else's influence, if the majority of the motivation comes from them, that love won't last. But if an action comes from within yourself, that's a wonderful beginning, and it reflects true love. So to answer briefly, where does love begin? Love begins when you do something because you want to. And it's okay if it feels a little awkward, a little hard, or requires effort. But that's love. If you understand this, you'll realize that love exists in many places, even in relationships that you thought were on the verge of breaking. Sometimes you don't realize it until you've lost it. For example, a person might quit smoking because of their partner after being together for a long time. Suddenly, the husband wants to quit smoking. That's love, my friends. I change because I want to. Not because someone forces me. Not in the early stages of a relationship when you want to impress and quit smoking for a few days or months, or secretly smoke behind their back. But if you find yourself saying, my smoking might harm my child or my wife, and you genuinely feel this way, that's love. A gesture, an action that comes from the desire, I want to do this because I believe it's better for someone else. Or consider this. You go to work every day and your partner or your wife prepares a neat, ironed outfit for you every morning without you ever asking. They simply want to do it. That's love. Appreciate it, because they do it entirely of their own free will. They choose to do it because they believe it's good for you. Appreciate it. What are you waiting for? Or perhaps someone realizes they snore too loudly when they sleep. So they research the issue, trying various solutions, buying anti-snoring devices, practicing breathing exercises, taping their mouth, or expanding their nasal passages. Whether or not these methods work doesn't matter. If you understand where love begins, you'll see, this is love. They voluntarily do it. No one forced them. But an action driven entirely by themselves to express care for someone else, that's love. And if every day of your life involves actions like this, even when you no longer feel driven by emotions or hormones, even when you're no longer captivated by the other person's beauty, you still want to do it, you still try, and you do it willingly. That's love. I believe that the pinnacle of love is when you voluntarily do something and still put in effort to maintain the relationship. That kind of love lasts a long time. You see, people often say that love begins when two people become bored with each other. I completely agree. You might argue, hey, if love doesn't have those initial thrills and hormones, how can it be called love? I prefer the fiery, passionate kind of love at the beginning. First, let me tell you this. Okay, if you like that initial stage of love where two people first meet, go ahead and experience it. Have 10 relationships if you like. But I guarantee you it will fade or at least diminish significantly over time. Second, after you start expressing love voluntarily, with effort, with willingness, do you know what happens? You're human. You're not a plant. When you do something, after doing it, you'll feel something. You'll appreciate the act itself. You'll become aware of the act you performed. And perhaps you'll see the other person's happiness. Their joy might even resonate back into your own feelings. You'll experience a different kind of fulfillment, a different kind of love. And that is love. It's much deeper, my friends. Let me repeat. For example, when you feel exhausted, but you make an effort to sit down, listen, and share with your spouse or partner, after doing that, how do you feel? And how does the other person feel? When we reflect on it, we'll realize this is the kind of wonderful love we should cherish. People often blame each other after a breakup. He didn't care about me, or she didn't care about the family, didn't care about me. That word care says a lot about a relationship, doesn't it? Why should I care about the other person? One day, I already have them. I've already been intimate with them. I've locked the certainty of this relationship with a marriage certificate, for example. Yet I still care. There's only one motivation for this. I care because I want to. I remind myself to care, to cherish, right? I choose responsibility. I like it this way. That is love. When someone no longer cares, it means love has dwindled. And that's the clearest and most accurate sign. It's not about whether two people are still together or if they've had another child. While that may play a part, if you wake up every day and say, I want to care for this person, then I believe that is love. That's the language, the unit of measurement for love. And that's where love should begin. Now let's talk about another field. You've grasped the formula, haven't you? When we do something and our actions stem from our own will, we acknowledge and understand the discomfort, the difficulties, and the responsibilities that come with it. But we still do it. There's resistance here. There's effort here. Yet we still do it. That is love. Sometimes I hear people comment on my posts. Occasionally there's a comment like this: why bother going to the gym? I work as a laborer, lifting countless water bottles or sacks daily. Isn't that exercise? First, let me clarify. I have no prejudice against any profession. This is just an example to illustrate the point of today's discussion. Normally, I stand on the side of those who face hardships. If you've listened to me long enough, you'll notice this. So let me say this up front, to avoid any misunderstanding that I'm criticizing laborers. I'm not. Now let me explain my point. You work as a laborer, and by accident, you get exercise from your lifting duties. Let me ask you, is this act of exercise, in quotes, because you want to, or because your job requires it? Understanding this distinction allows us to evaluate many things. It seems that the job compels you to do it. Do you enjoy exercising during this process? Maybe you feel exhausted. Sure, during that exhaustion, your body unconsciously becomes fit because of the labor. But if during that time you're simply enduring it, doing it for the paycheck because the job forces you to, then this isn't a love story about maintaining health. But what about another scenario? You and I both naturally want to stay in bed and sleep. That's more comfortable. Why spend your free time lifting inanimate objects? Why do we still do it? What force drives us? At first, it might be external forces like illness or poor health pushing us to the gym because we want change. But for someone who continues working out for months or years, what's their only motivation? They want to. And I think that's the embodiment of self-love. The desire to be healthy, that's genuine love for oneself. I do it, and behind this action, 100%, or at least over 80%, of the motivation comes from me. Nothing external is pulling me there. Because someone who works out long enough experiences all the pain. It's painful. Lifting dozens of kilos, hundreds of kilos, it's not light and not easy. They have to push themselves. They have to strive. They have to endure, right? They embrace it all, dive into it, and embrace the pain. And after embracing today's pain, they continue tomorrow. I call these people those who love themselves. And that's the perfect starting point for improving health. When you're bored to death with it, no longer feeling any motivation from working out, that's the real beginning of love for fitness and self-care. What about the beginning? At the start, as I mentioned earlier, let me clarify. You might go to the gym because of a poster you saw. Wow, this guy has six-pack abs. What a great body. At that point, you go because you're drawn to the advertisement. Or maybe you idolize The Rock or those professional wrestlers on TV and want to be like them. Okay, this kind of guidance might come from others, right? But believe me, one day nothing external will guide you anymore. It's just like romantic love. At some point, it stabilizes and becomes normal. That's when it's revealed whether true love can begin or not. If one day you wake up, you don't feel like going to the gym, but you think to yourself, I want to be healthy. I need to take responsibility for this. I must overcome this resistance. I must overcome this feeling of boredom. Okay, you put on your clothes, your shoes, grab your bag, fill a water bottle, and head straight to the gym. If you can do that, label it self-love, because that is true love. That's true love. That's the beginning and continuation of health improvement. As for myself, I love reading books. And often, my friends, if I find a book good enough, I'm only speaking for myself here. I'm not imposing this on anyone else. I'll read it at least 5 times. Sounds excessive, doesn't it? But in reality, if you only read a book 2 or 3 times, you might still not fully grasp it. But if you read a book 5 times, you'll have to face a challenge. You'll have to reread something old. And the old will never be as appealing as something new. We always crave new things. If you love reading, you've developed the habit of reading, haven't you? When you pick up a new book, the experience is different. Even if the new book is on an old topic, simply because it's new, its appeal will be different. So you read it. At that time, you're reading a new book. It's exciting. What drives you to read? It's novelty. Maybe someone reviewed it and piqued your interest, persuading you to read it. Where does this guidance come from? From others. This might be necessary. You can use it as a tool, just like when I introduce a method to you and you follow it. Initially, it's like I'm drawing you in, just as I might choose to buy a book after researching it. Perhaps I saw a compelling review, an enticing introduction, or an attractive cover, or it's by a favorite author. All these draws are external forces pulling me in. So I read it for the first time. I find it interesting, exciting. I read it a second time. It's still interesting, still exciting. But by the 3rd time, I swear to you, there's no external appeal left. There's nothing external left to draw me in. My goodness, I've already read it twice. What's left to attract me? But I still decide to read it a 3rd time. This time, I read it because I want to. After reading it twice, I already understand its value. I know it's good, and I also know there's information I haven't fully digested yet, and I need to reread it, even if there's no longer any excitement. During the 3rd read, I'll have to read very carefully, very deeply. I'll have to pause at the difficult parts I may have skipped over or pretended to understand in the earlier readings. The 3rd read is intellectual labor. It's about taking responsibility, facing resistance, and enduring discomfort while reading. And yet I still read it because I want to. That's when the love of reading begins, not the day you bought the book. Of course, everyone's level of effort is different. You may have been doing this for a long time, practicing daily so it feels easier. But for beginners, it's hard. Yet the essence of expressing a love for reading is when, behind the action, at least 70 to 80% of the motivation comes from you. At that point, you'll read for 5 years, 10 years. You'll keep reading endlessly. You won't get bored. True love is as beautiful as that. What about careers? I'll talk about this last to wrap up today's discussion. You want to be a singer, right? You want to be a director, a CEO, or an investor. I can guarantee that most of you desire those professions because you're drawn to them from the outside. Why do you want to be a singer? You admire those famous singers standing on stage with audiences cheering and screaming. They drive fancy cars and live in luxury homes. It's impressive. Those things are what attract you. And if you base your current passion solely on that external appeal, trust me, you'll tire of it quickly. Love appears when you start to get bored. That's the true beginning. The same applies to becoming an investor. You want to make a lot of money. It's the money that attracts you, not something internal, right? Becoming a CEO is similar. Oh, wearing a suit in the morning? Stepping into a boardroom? That's intimidating, isn't it? Power and prestige. Who wouldn't want that? But your passion is drawn from that glamour, isn't it? That's not a good starting point. When you're building a career, there will come a day when that glamour no longer draws you in. You're tired of it. You work endlessly, but don't see yourself becoming famous. You work endlessly, but don't feel successful. The external motivation fades to nearly zero. That's the most beautiful moment. And that moment determines whether someone will succeed and go the distance. When nothing external lifts you anymore, and you're currently seen as a failure, yet you wake up in the morning and keep going. Why? Because I want to. You've faced difficulties, encountered resistance, experienced disappointment. You realize it's not as rosy as you thought. It's now somewhat dark, yet you still keep going, right? That's the perfect starting point for a career. Many of you tend to overemphasize the act of giving up. I think it's very difficult to prove that. Out of countless times you've quit something, any one of them was the right time to give up. Because in any profession, sooner or later, you'll reach a point where you're utterly bored. Remember the excitement you felt when you first got into a university? Then later you said, "Turns out I chose the wrong field." Why didn't you realize it earlier? Compare the 2 points in time. At first, you were drawn by the prospects of attending university. That was external motivation. Later, when you realized it wasn't suitable, you overlooked one aspect. Where was your effort during that process? Was there ever a day when you woke up feeling completely disillusioned, yet you still tried despite the disillusionment? How long did that effort last? Show it to me. If it lasted a year or even 2, you'd think very differently about what you're doing. A true career begins on the day you're tired of it. You haven't succeeded yet. You're disappointed. But deep down, you still want to keep trying. Your actions today are driven by willpower, effort, and determination. And one important statement: I want to do this. That's it. And don't make too big a deal out of feeling disheartened. I think it's very normal. I'm disheartened, you're disheartened. In the future, your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren will also feel disheartened. It never truly goes away, and we shouldn't view it as an obstacle, my friends. Now, going back to the example of becoming a singer, you try singing, upload a video, and it gets just 1 view. No one watches it. Will you quit? Then it seems you don't love singing that much. You love fame more. The driving force that led you into this career seems to be the desire for fame. So how much responsibility are you willing to take on in your efforts? Has anyone who succeeded taken on only a fraction of responsibility? I don't think so. But if today you only get 1 view, tomorrow you still wake up and practice singing. You still research how to create better videos. You still study social media algorithms to help your content reach more people. For example, you keep learning. You keep trying. Why? Because I want to. Even though you feel utterly discouraged, you still want to. You still strive. You're still determined. One day you'll succeed. And in the process of diving deep, researching, consciously working hard and trying every day, you'll find yourself falling in love with what you do. When you dedicate your time, energy, and wholehearted focus coming entirely from you, you will fall in love with it. I hope that at least a few times in your life, you experience that feeling, devoting yourself fully to something and discovering that you truly love it. I hope I've helped answer a major question in life for you. Where should I start? Live openly, love freely, open your heart to experiences, but remember those beginnings are mere opportunities, an initial gateway. They are not the true start of something sustainable or long-lasting. The day it truly begins is the day when all external forces vanish, and the only thing left, or rather, the primary motivation is because I want to. If you too are searching for your own answers, start taking action today. Like and share this video if you found it helpful. Subscribe to this channel to receive more valuable lessons that can change your life. And always remember, the greatest strength lies within you. I wish you a life of success, sustainability, and enlightenment. See you in the next video.